with the word. The people that are the whole of humanity are a team. The body is not supported by one, but by us all. We are one, strongest when we are working together in unity. Teamwork is the key to living life in harmony and living out God's will. 1 Corinthians 12:14. I'd like us to keep this verse in mind when we're talking about our habit. Our habit is habit 6, synergize. Synergy means the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. In other words, 2 heads are better than 1. Synergy is not your way or my way, but it's our way. Another way to say that is you're in synergy when you and all the people around you are working together and can understand each other.
So to clarify this a little bit more, I'm going to talk about what synergy is and what synergy isn't. So we see a really good example of what synergy is when we look at nature. So I don't know if you guys have ever done this before, but if you put 2 plants next to each other and you wait some time, then the roots will actually intertwine and they'll grow together and it'll create something bigger and better than before. So that's the whole idea of synergy. So the goal of life is to have that same synergy with the people that we're interacting with every single day. Synergy is also celebrating differences, teamwork, and having an open mind with communication. It is not compromise, which is something that is often, this is what it's confused with a lot. Something that's different about synergy and compromise is that compromise involves setting aside part of yourself in order to meet in the middle, whereas synergy is bringing your entire self and all of your ideas forward with somebody else or a team of people in order to create something bigger and better than before. So with compromise, 1 plus 1 is usually more like 1.5, but with synergy, 1 plus 1 can be 3, 10, 1,000, or whatever you guys end up coming up with. It is also not tolerating difference or working independently.
Okay, so before we dive more into this habit, we wanted to do a couple activities. So if everyone can grab out a piece of paper and label 1 through 10 on it, that would be awesome. And you can just look up at us when you guys are ready. We're going to give you 30 seconds, and we want you to name 10, as many body parts as you can think of that start with, or that have 3 letters in them. There's 10 of them, and you have 30 seconds to write down as many as you can. And go.
Only 3 letters.
Only 3 letters. And there are as many body parts as you can think of. 15 seconds. 5 seconds. Okay, pens down. No cheating. Okay. How many of you guys were able to get at least 1? Okay, that's pretty good. I'm impressed with you guys. How many of you guys were able to get at least 5? Okay. Anybody got 10? Okay. So, we're going to do the same activity, but we're going to put you guys in groups of 3. You guys have 1 paper, you can just flip it over, 1 person's going to write it, and we're going to do the same thing, but we want to see how much you guys can come up with together. Okay, so, ready, and go. There's also legs. 10 seconds. Okay, stop. Okay, stop. Okay. Good job. Okay, so I have a question for you guys. Was it easier on your own, or was it easier to do it as a group? Okay. So the point of that exercise was for you guys to bring points and learn how to work together and group and be as a group and work together and see how much you can incorporate into it as together. Just in case you guys are really anxious to know what the answers were, it was eye, hip, arm, leg, ear, toe, jaw, rib, lip, and gum. Did anybody get gum? Okay, so good job, everybody. Pat yourself. We're gonna do one more activity, and we're gonna tell a story as a group. Okay? And we don't think that we're gonna get through the whole story, but we just wanted to do it as an exercise, just to give you guys in the right mind space. So we're gonna tell a story, and here's the catch, though. Only as we go down the line, you can only say one word of this story. So this is you having to work off of the person who said the word before you and have to adjust and figure out what word you need to use. So for example, we're going to use the story, The Tortoise and the Hare. So
Does everybody know that story?
yeah, does everybody know that story?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If not, so Nora will start.
There once
Was
A cat.
yeah, turtle.
Ran fast.
And
A
You said turtle?
Yeah.
rabbit.
Who ran?
Slow.
sleep.
The
Race.
but.
He then
We'll go back to Grant.
Kept running.
But.
He
Eventually.
Did
make
Get a torch gun.
did make
To make the end.
the
Winner.
Was the. Turtle. The end.
Okay, so it looks like some of you guys don't actually know the story. So what did you guys learn during that activity? Were there challenges, things that were easy?
You were relying on other people to say the right thing so that the story would stay straight.
So was it challenging having to come up with something and you weren't expecting that?
Yes.
Okay. Leah, did you have something else?
It was, you were also, like, if someone messed up, you were also relying on the other people to fix it. And then when that didn't happen, you were just hoping it, like, got to you quicker so you could fix it.
Yeah.
But you only had one word. So.
Yeah, exactly. So the whole goal of that activity was to help you guys see how important it is to kind of change depending on what the person before you has said. So if all of you had thought about the word you were gonna say and just said it, regardless of what the person before you said, it would have been even more of a hot mess than it was. However, there is something else to learn from this activity because you guys were really only able to say one word. You weren't able to communicate. This is where I think the story's going. You know, you weren't able to communicate a goal before you started telling this story together. So those are some differences that we'll see as we talk more about synergizing versus communicating the way we did in this activity.
So Covey states that synergy is the highest activity in all life and the truest test and manifestation of all other habits. In order to synergize, we must have a strong internal base that we get from the first three habits. Synergy is also the fruits from habits 4 and 5. So 4 is think, win, win. And 5 we just saw is seek first to understand, then to be understood. So in order to have synergy, we can't think in a win-lose or a lose-win or lose-lose mindset. And also we have to seek others, and empathizing, and deeply understanding others from their point of view, like we saw in the previous habit. So to achieve synergy is a process, and sometimes it's tricky to know, am I in synergy or not? So we added some key things so you know when you're in synergy. You'll have usually a change of heart, you'll value differences, embracing criticism, feeling new energy, excitement, see things in a new way, feel that your relationships have been transformed, and you end up with an idea as a whole that is better than what you would have started out with by yourself. And that's what we call the third alternative, which we'll talk about.
So we do have pros and cons of synergy. So some benefits, which you guys may have already discovered, is that it allows for creativity, cooperation, teamwork, open-mindedness, and finding new solutions to old problems that you might not be able to figure out on your own. Additionally, synergizing can help you discover things that you wouldn't have discovered if you were just working on things by yourself, just like what Nora was saying with the third alternative. And like I was mentioning earlier, it is different from compromise, where since you're bringing your full self forward, it ends up being 1 + 1 = 3 or 1,000 or however many different ideas you can think of. There are some risks though. Sometimes synergizing can be really scary because you have to be vulnerable about the things that you're thinking about, and a lot of times you don't really know where things are going to end up. So you really have to just dive in and give it your best self, because creativity takes risk, but the benefits can be really great. Without common purpose, goals, or set of principles, there can end up being negative synergy, which is where you see prejudices, chaos, and lack of respect for one another. Also, it can be really scary because a lot of people haven't necessarily experienced this before, because even if you have a situation where you're getting along with people, sometimes you just don't really end up talking about the things you have disagreements on, because you don't want to get into that, you don't want to have strife or tension with people, which is what happens a lot in families. But you can actually, once you are able to dive into that synergy, there can be really good benefits. But because a lot of people haven't experienced it, they can be kind of scared off by entering into it.
Okay, so knowing all that, let's come up with, we put a game plan on here, or an action plan for synergy. So first thing you want to do is define the problem. What are you guys working on? What's the issue at hand? Then you want to seek to understand, and you want to understand the problem, ask questions, find the task at hand, and work together as a group. Next, you want to understand their way. You want to get their perspective, and you want to understand everybody's ideas before you jump in with yours. Try to listen carefully and be really understanding and empathetic to what the other people are saying. Next, you don't want to forget about your way. So remember your way. Be understood. Be kind. Be generous with time. And make sure that you do have your input in there, but just be gracious with that. Next thing you want to do is brainstorm. As a group, and instead of being separate, work together and brainstorm ideas, new plans, and activities to complete the task at hand. And then you want to find a highway. Find the best solution. Work through all those possibilities you came up with and find the best solution that works with everybody and not just yourself, or not just for them, but work together. And this can be vulnerable and it can be really challenging, but if you find that sweet spot and you find the highway and you learn to work together with everybody, then you'll have a more productive outcome of your task.
So what's the big picture of this? This triangle that we have on the chart is really the best big picture, kind of summed up in a small little space. So you see that everything that happens with synergy is surrounding willingness. So you first have to be willing, that's the first step. From that comes trust and the ability to communicate. A base for this is also valuing differences. So a lot of times I find myself in situations where I'm kind of veered off from differences, but the really most important thing of synergy is valuing those differences and being able to dive into them. Just like we learned about from the other group, it also involves seeking first to understand and then to be understood. And you also have to communicate the end in mind and make sure you guys have the same goal. And from there, you get to explore alternatives and figure out the third alternative that Nora was talking about earlier. Do you guys have any questions?
Can you touch on why synergy is not compromise a little bit more?
So in the book, there was a really good example explaining a family that was planning to go on a fishing trip. So the dad, it's a dad and a mom and then 2 sons. So the dad had been preparing his fishing trip and they were gonna go camping and rent a boat and everything. They'd been planning this for a year. And the sons were really, really excited about it. However, a couple months before that, before they were gonna go on that trip, the mother's mother fell really ill. And so she wanted to go, instead of going on the fishing trip, she wanted to go visit her family. So the book explained that if they were in a place where they were focusing on compromise and trying to figure out some way to compromise in that situation, it would end up being like the son and the parent and the dad, they would go on the fishing trip, whereas the mom would go visit her mom or something, and that can end up in splitting. You know, the mother wouldn't get to go on the trip, the rest of the family wouldn't get to see their grandmother and everything like that. Then it explained if they were really looking at it from a synergizing point of view, they would first be, just like the other group is saying, seek first to understand, then be understood. It just said that it was really important that the 2 parents take the time to talk about why do you want to go on this trip instead, why do you want to go on this trip instead, and then they would be able to figure out something where they can do both, or move their fishing trip closer to the mother, something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Any more questions? Pastor Moore?
You jumped in. I didn't have to.
All right.
Thank you, Travis.
Well, thank you for your time.